Singapore is smaller than New York City. It has no oil and no minerals, no farmland to speak of, and yet quietly, it has become one of the wealthiest economies in the world.
Its GDP per capita itself has surpassed the likes of the UK, the US, France, and other developed countries.
Not through sudden discovery and not through luck, but through decades of deliberate design. So how did a resource-poor island turn itself into a global magnet for money? And can that system keep working as the world changes?
We should build on what we have today. We should affirm and reinforce what works well for Singapore.
Today, capital is more mobile than ever. So money moves fast across borders towards stability. Countries are competing not just for factories, but also for headquarters, wealth, and trust. Singapore sits at the center of that competition. Understanding how it works explains where global money is going next and why.
But of course, everybody knows that Singapore was a very well-endowed place, good infrastructure, communication, sea, air, land, good banking system, skilled workers. Oh, it's just natural course of events. It wasn't, you know. We made it so.
When Singapore became independent in 1965, its outlook was uncertain. It had just separated from Malaysia, and unemployment was high.
And in Singapore, the idea was that all races should be treated equal. But in Malaysia, there was a different outlook because Malay leaders and Malay politicians felt they were sons of the soil.
Its economy depended on a shrinking colonial trade network. Most importantly, it had nothing underground to sell. That constraint would shape every policy choice that followed.
It has access to the Straits of Malacca, to the Indian Ocean, to the South China Sea, which makes it a pivotal shipping hub.
So it did this initially by transforming Singapore into a manufacturing base, with a focus on labor-intensive industry at first to wipe out the high unemployment.
Singapore's early leaders recognized a basic problem. Without resources, the country had to become useful. Its geography offered one advantage. Singapore sits at the meeting point of the Indian Ocean and the South China Sea, along one of the world's busiest shipping routes. The government leaned into that position by turning Singapore into a manufacturing base. Low-cost, labor-intensive factories came first. So the goal wasn't innovation, but employment. Manufacturing was never the destination. Instead, it was a bridge.
And will ensure that Singapore remains a critical gateway for global travel and trade.
As factories moved in, Singapore focused on something less visible. It built rules, a predictable legal system, strict contract enforcement, low corruption, and efficient courts. Public transport worked, ports ran on time, and utilities were reliable. These weren't lifestyle upgrades. They were economic infrastructure. Capital doesn't chase ideology. It chases certainty. And Singapore built a system designed to provide it.
And east to new hubs like Singapore. That brings us here, inside some of the most secure private vaults in the world.
By the 1980s, Singapore began preparing for its next phase. Manufacturing alone wouldn't generate long-term wealth, so finance became the focus. The government opened its financial sector, liberalizing banking and capital markets, while keeping tight institutional oversight. Taxes were kept low, with corporate rates capped around 17%, and often lower for strategic activities. The result was quiet but compounding. Global banks arrived, followed by regional headquarters, and then capital managers. Today, thousands of multinational firms run Asia-Pacific operations from Singapore.
Singapore shifted emphasis to a knowledge-based economy that relies more on creativity and growing Singapore's entrepreneurs.
As wages rose, Singapore adjusted again. The economy shifted towards skills, services, and knowledge. Education spending increased, and universities aligned closely with industry. Entrepreneurship was encouraged, but within a tightly managed regulatory environment. The system favored stability over disruption and predictability over experimentation. That balance appealed to a specific kind of capital: long-term, institutional, and risk-aware. Attracting money required more than policy, so it also required livability. Singapore expanded through land reclamation, and the skyline changed. Entertainment districts were added, and major events followed. Integrated resorts, including casinos, were approved. This wasn't tourism strategy alone, it was capital strategy. Wealthy individuals don't just invest, they relocate. Singapore made itself easy to live in, easy to work from, and easy to trust.
For many wealthy clients, peace of mind matters just as much as profit, and geopolitical unrest, combined with global economic uncertainty, is one reason many are choosing to look eastward.
The effects accumulated quietly. Assets under management grew from hundreds of billions to several $1 trillion. Within 2 decades, Singapore became a regional hub for private banking, wealth management, and family offices. Not the loudest financial center, but one of the most stable.
Singapore is possibly the most densely defended country on the planet, with more troops, tanks, warships, and aircraft per square kilometer than any other country you find in the world.
Today, Singapore functions as a neutral platform. Western capital uses it to access Asia, and Asian capital uses it to diversify globally. Its political neutrality, strong institutions, and regulatory clarity make it a preferred intermediary. In an era of geopolitical tension, that position is valuable.
So I've reversed my assessment for today's generation in Singapore and elsewhere. The risk of regional and even global conflict, even in the next decade, has become non-zero. I do not make this assessment lightly.
Singapore's rise is often associated with strong leaders, but the system outlasted them. Policies were designed to be boring, processes repeatable, and institutions insulated. From sudden shifts, leadership mattered, but as architects, not heroes. The system was the product.
Freedom of the press, freedom of the news media must be subordinated to the overriding needs of the integrity of Singapore.
That same control has drawn criticism. Civil liberties are limited, and public dissent is tightly managed. Political competition exists, but within defined boundaries. Economically, success brought pressure. Housing prices rose, and living costs increased. Foreign labor inflows sparked public unease. Inequality narrowed statistically, but not always socially. Singapore now faces new constraints: an aging population, rising regional competition, and climate risks. To a low-lying island, the system that created wealth must now sustain it. That requires adaptation without breaking the rules that attracted capital in the first place. Singapore shows what happens when a country treats governance as infrastructure, but the question remains: in a world where money moves faster than ever, can a tightly managed system remain both competitive and legitimate for the next generation, or does quiet success eventually demand louder change?